Well, it's been a while since I've put this DC65 Animal Complete on an airflow box. And of course, this is my new one. If you are new to the channel, I used to use an old cardboard box. But aside from that, I've got now new methodologies for trying to seal this to the box. Yeah, we've done tape and I've done some microfiber cloths around, like, say, the front and the sides. But now I've got a much better way to go and actually seal the rear of the rug plate, of the nozzle itself, to get some actually really good high suction numbers. And to that end, for some vacuums, using, so you can see this here, using some foam weather stripping back here that crushes really rather nicely, I may, depending on the machine I'm testing, depending on how the rear of the rug plate is set, I may be able to get a little higher airflow numbers periodically. It depends on how difficult it was to actually seal the rear of the nozzle. But this particular setup is actually kind of cool because Dyson Canada tested a DC43, and the video's on YouTube. It's back from 2013, and they actually got 14.4 kPa, which ends up being 57.6 inches of water lift. So I know this isn't the exact same machine as a DC43, but guess what? This machine is similar in many ways. So my goal in this particular video is to not only see if I can manage to get a little more CFM out of this thing, because I've got a slightly better way of sealing it, but I want to see if I can get anywhere near 58 inches of lift. So I'm thinking that if I can get 58 inches of lift or a little higher, because after all, this machine is a little bit newer. I think it was supposed to be just a little bit stronger than what they say is a DC43 sold in Canada. So what I want to do is an airflow test, and I also want to do the suction test, and I'm really hoping that I can get higher than 58 inches of lift. And I think that's going to prove to me that the system that I have here, that is the methodology of actually sealing this to my new airflow box, and of course the airflow box seal itself, is going to be definitely 2 thumbs up. So without further ado, let's do some airflow. And I have gone and made a somewhat of a grand effort to clean these seals. So all of them have been wiped down, and I hope they are nice and tight. And let's see how this machine, I think from 2015, is still doing after all these years. The story behind this machine, it was actually a curb find. So let's see what we have. And we are also at, I think loaded, we're going to be about 122 volts. All right, I think we did a little bit better than what I've done in the past. Let's see, 2224. Yes. So before, I think I had about 52 CFM. The back of this rug plate is a little hard to seal, not anymore with this particular strip I have in the back because of the rear wheels pushing things up a little bit. So I have a little more airflow than what I had in the past when I tested this several years ago. Of course, I have a tiny bit more voltage as well. That's going to hardly make much of a difference, but I think we have a good seal with this. So I'm up to about 58 CFM, and I think that's more in line with what some other people have gotten with other machines similar to this on YouTube. So that makes me feel a little better. But now the piece de resistance, as they say, I want to go and do a suction test and see if I can get at least 58 inches of lift. And away we go. Okay, I'm going to have to review the footage, but I thought that I saw 64 inches of lift. So yes, I'm very excited about that. Just like Miko from Vacuum Tests got 100 CFM with his Vorwerk because he changed a filter. Woohoo! Good job, Miko. So yeah, I'm really excited about that because it means that my whole system right here is doing very, very well. And that's also an awful lot of suction at the cleaner head for a Dyson. But we need to talk about something else here. So let me change the camera again, and I want to just go over something. So this is Rant 852. Let's talk about Airwatts, suction losses, airflow losses. So you just saw that this DC65 has a certain amount of nozzle airflow and a certain amount of nozzle suction. And I just Googled it, and for the DC65, this motor, okay, the motor itself had a rating from Dyson of 245 Airwatts. You saw in a video I made a number of months ago where I measured what the suction was at the motor intake right here on the top. And I got 122 CFM right here in the intake. And I got 115 inches of lift. So think about this for a minute, okay? You start out with a certain number of Airwatts, and there's a formula for that you can easily see if you Google it. What happens when you take a certain amount of airflow and suction, and you run it through all the little tubes, you run it through the cyclonic assembly and whatever else you have to do, and by the time you get down to your nozzle, imagine you have everything roughly cut in half. Just let's work with round numbers for a second. Suppose this had 120 CFM here, and down here you had 60 CFM usable. Suppose you had 120 inches of lift up here at the motor intake, and that got cut down to 60 inches of lift usable. So it's nice to have a lot of Airwatts to start with. That's great. You got to start somewhere. But what do you think your actual nozzle Airwatts would be if you took your airflow and then you cut it in half, and then you took your suction and you cut it in half? Now I know the curves aren't exactly perfectly linear, and I don't have this set up to be as an airflow box, but if this is 245 Airwatts here, how many Airwatts of cleaning power do you think are left down here when you're actually using it? Answer is a lot less than you think. So take a look at the Airwatts formula, figure out what some of these ratios are, and you'll have a general loose idea of how much, right, bagless systems give up in order to get rid of the bag, right, and how much power they use in order to try to get some airflow and suction where you can actually use it at the nozzle area during, when the brush bar is actually spinning and you're running it on carpet. So this has been one of my biggest pet peeves. I'm not picking on Dyson in particular. Right now I've got 10 Dyson fanatics that their heads just exploded. This is bagless systems in general. This is going to be the same problem for most bagless systems, most upright bagless systems. Tremendous amount of power, great motor, love it. I mean, this motor is near central vacuum levels, entry-level central vacuum levels for this motor in here. Fabulous motor. But unfortunately, because of all the complex piping and whatever else you got going on, by the time you get down to the brush bar at the nozzle here, you've lost most of your cleaning power. So that's really the point that I wanted to kind of drive home. In addition to, yay, my box is actually sealed and tight, and I think I got 64 inches of lift, which should be in my collection the highest suction available at any cleaner head. So stay tuned for more, and thanks for watching.